Okay, so last class we discussed about this VCF automation and its components from architecture perspective because we are exploring the architecture diagram one by one, right? So we started with VCF fleet, then we started VCF automation, then we completed VCF automation. Now let's go to the next part. Till now, we clearly understood VCF operations and VCF automation from architecture perspective, which are sitting at the fleet level. Now, let us go one level down and focus on VCF instance.
बघूठा समी
What is VCF instance? Let's try to understand that. A VCF instance brings together all the infrastructure components needed to run our workloads in the production support. It is the core of the VCF deployment. Think it of like a complete data center which is built from the software. So this is where we'll integrate all the software defined components like SDDC manager, ESXi, vCenter, vSAN, and NSX into a single unified stacks. So in technical terms, a VCF instance provides the compute, storage, and networking virtual infrastructure required to run both management services and business applications. When I say management services, that is going to keep my private cloud up and running. This runs in the management domain of the VCF instance. When I say business applications, which is going to run our customer workloads, this runs in the workload domain. Now let's try to explore what is management domain and what is workload domain in more detail in the next slide. In the last slide, we discussed that a VCF instance is the complete infrastructure environment where all our workloads is going to run. It brings together compute, storage, and networking into one unified stack. Now, let's look at how actually we create a VCF instance during the VCF 9 deployment. If you look at the screenshot attached, we can see we are inside the VCF deployment wizard and we are going to define our first VCF instance. To define that, go to that general information page of the VCF deployment wizard. Provide the VCF instance name for this deployment. In this example, we are naming it as mg-vcf-9. So next, we define the management domain name below that. Here we set the name as mg-mt. So as discussed in the last slide, the management domain is the foundation of the VCF instance, which is going to host all the management services like our vCenter, NSX manager, vSphere cluster, SDDC manager, which is going to keep the VCF private cloud up and running. The management domain wizards also tell us this mgmt name will be used to generate names for objects in the management domain. You can just read the lines which is below that management domain. Okay. So management domain is not just a concept. It is the first thing we configure when deploying a first VCF instance. So here I just drawn arrow lines from the VCF instance name to the architectural definition, the first VCF instance, and one more arrow which is pointing from my management domain to the management domain, which is there in the architecture diagram. So this will help you to understand uh, in a better way. So if you have any queries on this architectural discussion of first VCF instance and the management domain, yes, you can ask me now. Okay, so okay.
Sir, what
Till
is the
now,
main thing which we can configure?
what is that?
Main difference on management and workload domain. So, if in the management domain only containing vCenter, NSX, vSphere, and SDDC manager, or vSphere cluster means it contain a workloads, right?
VCF cluster means
vSphere cluster means it containing a group of hosts and which maintain the loads, right? It does not deploy any other VMs, or it will hold only the management related VMs.
no, for the best practice here in management domain, we'll be running only the vCenter, NSX manager, then SDDC manager, VCF operations, VCF automation, all those things will run on this management domain. Okay,
Like
uh,
for ESXi host is enough to run a management domain, right?
that we can start with
So
the minimum 4 ESXi hosts. That is it.
yeah, okay. For that, for ESXi host with a small cluster for just a management domain. So whatever the next clusters, we can configure the same clusters on workload domain, right?
Yes, say there are two options. Say there are multiple deployment options available that we are going to
Okay.
explore during our deployment class. What happens is you might have a doubt. Okay, I'm already having some hardware which is allocated inside the management domain. Why can't I use the same hardware to create additional cluster? There I can run my business workloads also, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that is also possible. Okay, that
Okay.
is consolidated deployment.
Okay.
Okay, everything runs in the same management domain itself. Okay,
Okay.
and if we need isolation, yes, you can go for workload dependence domains. So it purely depends on that customer. Okay, when I say
Okay.
customer, when you are learning BCF, don't think only from on-premises, I know like customers who is owning their own data center. Think about the service providers who is providing infrastructure as a service.
Okay.
This architecture diagram is very well suits for the infrastructure service providers because there they will be dealing with multiple tenants. Say I'm Annam, I'm taking training for you. Okay, my business is very
Okay.
small. Okay, so tomorrow if I want to start an training center with some 2 to 3 servers, then the capital
Okay.
investment for me is very high. Okay, so instead what I will do, I will approach an infrastructure service provider. There I will take a service for rent and I'll be paying some rental amount on a subscription basis for an year or for 3 months or for 1 year. Okay, I'll be taking a subscription. Now what happens here? That service provider will be providing the same infrastructure service for n number of customers or they called as tenants. In that case,
Yeah.
he will go for workload domains for each and every tenant separately. That is one of the
Okay.
real-time scenario you can relate with
Okay.
because
Same single
yeah,
management domain with a multiple workload domains. For one client, one workload domain. You mean
yeah,
to say like that?
yeah, because as of now, our thinking is purely based on our old experience. Our old experience is based on virtual environment, whereas we'll be creating multiple clusters. One is for management, another cluster for running a customer business application, then another cluster for development, another cluster for testing. This is how We worked in the VMware environment for the last 10 years of time period. Now, when
Yeah.
things getting changed, we always get a question, right? Why I need to create workload domain? Why can't I use create a separate cluster inside the management domain itself? And why can't I run my business application there itself, right? So
Yeah.
that's what the answer for that is it depends on the customer business. Don't think VCF from the small and mid-sized customer level. Think from the enterprise level customers. Just take an example of a banking sector who is having the branches all over the world. If he is using the
Yeah.
VMware environment, how he is going to use this VCF? I think from that perspective, then you can easily connect. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Till now, we have clearly understood what is fleet, what is operations, what is automation, what is VCF instance, and what is management domain inside that VCF architectural diagram. Now, let us focus on the workload domain, which is where the actual customer business applications are run in real-time production support. So the question comes here is, what is a workload domain? Workload domain is a dedicated environment where customer business applications and workloads run. If you look at the right side of the diagram, each workload domain has its own vCenter, its own NSX, its own cluster, and its own infrastructure resources. Let me relate this with the traditional vSphere environment so that it becomes much easier for us to understand. So I'll explain this in the next slide. Before getting into that VCF workload domains, just think about our traditional vSphere setup. In traditional vSphere setup, how do we usually separate